Good evening. Welcome to the Pleasantville Village Board meeting. Today is Monday, April 26th. If you're watching live today, Monday, April 26th, we encourage you to call in if you have questions or comments. The call-in number is 769-1677. And I remind you, as I always do, that you can watch on cable TV. At the moment, just Cablevision. Verizon is now operating with video in our town, but they have up to 180 days to complete the connections to PCTV, the government and education channels. So as of the moment, if you sign up for Verizon, you'll have to wait a maximum of 180 days to get those channels through your television. But as part of the contractual commitment that Verizon has to do so, you can also catch what goes on all of those channels on PCTV76.org. .com, which is an opportunity not only to see live web streaming of our meetings, but also on-demand video of past meetings. So if you're, again, watching live tonight, Monday, April 26th, we encourage your comments at 769-1677. The first thing I wanted to say is that we have scheduled for a resolution on the agenda. The first four resolutions tonight are the four resolutions having to do with the budget for our new fiscal year, which begins June 1. We have been, all of us, vigorously working on this budget over the last month and have continued to struggle with it over the last several days to the point that we think we've got some opportunities for progress and are therefore not going to vote on the budget tonight. We're required by law to have passed a balanced budget by May 1, and as a result of that, we are going to have a special session for the purpose of voting on the budget, which will be Thursday of this week, April 29th at 7 p.m. So that'll be duly noticed as a public meeting, and our sole reason for doing that is to give us another several days to fight with the budget and see whether we can reduce it further. So we'll have more to say about that tonight and describe where we are. So those of you who are interested in the budget issues, I encourage you to hang on and stick with us because there will be more to be said about it, but we won't be voting on it tonight in the hopes that we can make some further progress. So just to recap, our next regular session then is Thursday, April 29 at 7 p.m. for the budget vote. Our next work session thereafter is Monday, May 3 at 7 p.m. And then we have our regular Monday meeting, May 10, 2010 at 8 p.m. with a work session at 7. So I had a few things I wanted to report about goings on in the village and things we've been a part of. Last week was a very busy week for a whole series of reasons, and I attended a number of different events and wanted to report on some of the goings on. The first was on Tuesday night, as we always do. We participated in the school district's Teacher of the Year presentation this year. Greg DeMuro, who is the curriculum coordinator and a well-regarded physics teacher, was named Teacher of the Year, so we congratulate him on that. Wednesday night was a great night in the village of Pleasantville. The Chamber of Commerce annually has a Business Person of the Year election, and chamber members are invited to vote. This year it was a tie vote between the two people who were named Business Person of the Year. The first is Lucio Rocca of Lucio's Restaurant and Pizzeria on Washington Avenue, and the second was Shane McGaffey, who is the station manager at PCTV and a lifelong village resident. I say lifelong. He had a brief interregnum where he fled to Russia and then I think briefly to Dutchess County or Putnam County, but we have him back 24 hours and 7 days a week. So it was an event at the country club, and I think most of us were there and can chime in that it was a very, very nice event and very well-deserved honor for both Lucio and Shane, so congratulations to all. And I would also say that I think the Chamber of Commerce over the last several years has done a really extraordinary job of not only building up their membership, building up enthusiasm for shared services within the various businesses, and partnering with various other organizations and partnering with us in plans to try to bolster the downtown business district. So that was great news as well. Thursday night, Rob Astorino, our new county executive, delivered his first State of the County address, and some of you may have picked that up on Channel 12 where it was broadcast live from White Plains. But it was an interesting address for a whole series of reasons, including Rob's description of the financial condition that the county is in, and although that doesn't have a direct impact on the village's budget, they are grappling with some of the very same issues we are, and certainly the county's budget situation has a direct impact on all of our wallets in the form of the county taxes we pay, which is a piece of the overall picture. So one of the things that Rob has vigorously endorsed and is struggling, I think, in a bit of a challenge with the unions and to some extent with the county legislators, is a proposal that all county employees be required to make a contribution towards their health care premiums. And that is a matter that continues to be a discussion here with our own unions. And I'm happy to say on the record that I personally endorse Rob's effort to make this happen, and strongly hope that he will achieve success in this regard, not only because I think it's the right thing to do, but because I think all of the unions that represent municipal employees and county employees and state employees need to recognize that it's a time of some shared sacrifice here. It's not business as usual, and we're arriving in a circumstance where the opportunities to work for government in some respects reflect a workplace that isn't found anywhere else in the world. And so it can't be reasonable for the taxpayer to be expected to pay for that when they themselves can't achieve anywhere near those kinds of benefits themselves. So I encourage any of you who are sufficiently interested in Rob's comments. I am reasonably certain that you can get a copy of them on the web at the Westchester website. Do you happen to know if that's true, Mindy?
Yes, that is true.
Mindy, as you may know, is now working part-time at the county as a legislative assistant to our former mayor and now our county legislator, John Nona, and that has turned out to be a great opportunity for the village to have an even stronger conduit of information between us and the county. So then the last thing I wanted to mention is that on Friday night there was an event, as there is annually, a fundraising event for the Pleasantville International Association, which is a private not-for-profit that seeks to raise money on behalf of kids who are going on international exchange programs. Also a really great night, and there were some brief presentations by the 7 kids who are headed off to foreign lands this summer, as well as by the 4 who came back last year, and they're going to be back here at a village board meeting on May 10. There had been some discussion of exactly when, but it's an impressive group of young people doing an impressive thing and showing, I think, not only quite a bit of enthusiasm, but quite a bit of courage to launch off and live with a family in a foreign country for the better part of the summer. So those were a list of things going on. In work session tonight, we met with a couple of people before we came on TV, and one was the core group of our new leadership on the Farm Market Committee, and I'm happy to report that great things are afoot at the farm market. We're going to rearrange its confirmation so that it is all at the north end of Memorial Plaza. That would be the end from the flagpoles and war monuments down towards the train overpass. In a U-shaped arrangement, we'll be cutting an exit route through the current median curb that exists roughly just past the gazebo, so that the traffic will be able to continue to circulate into the commuter side of the lot, but get out somewhere over near where Starbucks is. And as the effect of this is that we're not only going to have a better separation of pedestrian and car traffic in the farm market, but it creates a better place for the trucks to park behind the booths, especially those trucks that need to serve their booths. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, it creates the opportunity for about 10 more vendors who will be a part of the farm market this year. So good news on that front, and we'll have more to report soon. There will be a sort of a soft opening, I think, the last week, the last Saturday in May, and then June it kicks off.
Are they going to be able to make, I've been thinking about this, and I know that there was an answer, but when you make that right out of the cut through, and if you want to make a right onto Manville, can you do that?
You have to go to the light.
Yeah.
Right, you can do that.
You're going to be able to make a right at the light?
At the traffic light.
As you
Because
can
there's
now.
no right. No, you can't.
Yes, you can.
Sure you can.
No, you have to go through the cut through.
No, you can do both. Your right turn is allowed.
It's not illegal.
I always thought it was
'Cause
an
you wouldn't
illegal
do it.
right
No.
turn.
You wouldn't normally do it. Why
Right.
would you?
Right.
Unless you had lost your mind and ended up down there quite by accident, which...
That's
Oh,
very
okay,
possible
maybe you
too.
did try it.
All right.
So-
All right. I just had to clarify that.
We've been
One of those few times.
we've been trying your patience over the past 5 or 6 months with the streetscape improvements that are going on Bedford Road, from down around the 7-Eleven and Lukoil area, and now all the way up toward John Jock. Patty, can you give us a report on where we stand and how soon we hope to be done?
Well, most of the infrastructure work is completed. The signalization part of the project is not completed. That will involve another subcontractor coming in, installing a traffic signal, and installing all the pedestrian walk cycles. I know we're on schedule for completion by the end of spring, but that could be as late as late June.
Yeah, I know. In my mind, it was supposed to be April 30th.
Well,
But-
I don't know. It's all dependent. There's only one contractor in the county that does the signalization work. So we're in the queue, but I don't know where.
And can you just, I know, seeing that it's budget time, that was something that was a block grant?
That
And-
project in particular?
Yes, and that it was already, taken out of the previous, we've had that on the books, it's like, what, 3 years?
We contributed $350,000 to that project. The county paid the rest. It's about a $615,000 project.
Right.
Okay, so we're expecting it to be done by the end of June, including the new signal. There'll be a traffic
Yes.
light in front of Lukoil that will be up in operation. So,
Yeah, massive
Right.
stoplight, actually.
Yeah,
it's
that
certainly a
big
big crossing.
thing,
yeah.
that's huge.
That was amazing.
So at any rate, progress inching forward. So let me just make a few comments about where we are with the budget, describe some of what we're doing at the moment and where we may go, and anybody else who has any comment can chime in, and then we'll invite the public to offer whatever comments they may have. As you may have read if you read the Examiner or the Journal News, the budget that we have posted in draft presumes a 7.38% tax increase. That obviously is a number that nobody is very happy with, and that number arises for a whole series of reasons. We're in a circumstance that is rather common with lots of towns and villages in Westchester and indeed far beyond. And the key factors that are driving this are as follows. The first is that a number of variable revenue sources that we have depended on and which have been not just stable but generally trending upward over the last 6, 7, 8 years have gone south on us because of the turnaround in the economy. Chief among those is our share of the county sales tax. The way it works is that the sales tax is collected and then some percentage of it based on a formula is handed back to all the different municipalities. And at its height, that was amounting, and correct me if I'm a little bit off, Patty, to about $1 million
That's about right.
a year. And that has sagged a bit to about $800,000 a year. The same story exists with mortgage recording tax, which is a tax that is levied by the state when a new mortgage is filed, and a piece of it is handed back to the municipality in which the mortgage began. So that has also been a declining source of revenue. In addition to that, we have suffered a series of tax challenges from various properties that have knocked some value out of the overall assessment base. So what happens is if an individual property owner is successful in reducing their tax assessment, they pay lower taxes as a result, and in order to raise the same amount of money, everybody else has to pay a little more. In typical years, over the 7 or 8 years that I've been on the board, we've had a continuing flow of tax challenges, which is always the case, but by and large have not had any particularly big cases. Just at the moment, we are confronted with a much longer list of tax challenges than we've ever had before. Something like 150 some odd of them filed in February of this year, and a lot of them are single-family homes, but some of them amount to big potential liabilities, including tax challenges on large commercial properties, and more specifically, germane to the current budget, tax challenges on co-ops and condos. Co-ops and condos, for a whole series of reasons having nothing to do with the village of Pleasantville and having a lot to do with the state of politics in Albany, are very favorably treated under the New York State Tax Code. A co-op or condo is assessed not based on its market value, but based on an artificial construct of what a complex would be worth to an investor seeking to operate it as a rental complex. So any of you who are interested in getting under the hood of that, we can send you to the right websites to read all the details. The effect of it is that a co-op or condo pays substantially lower taxes, even at equivalent value as compared to a single-family home of the same value. The other problem we confront, and I don't say this to suggest that people shouldn't do what they have the right to do, they certainly do have the legal right to do it, but complexes by and large represent a larger number of homeowners. They're in a position to hire tax attorneys to challenge their taxes, and the effect of this is that what we're looking at right now, the very substantial tax challenge from the Foxwood condominium, as well as tax challenges from some other commercial and commercially treated properties, is a substantial reduction in the overall tax base. And indeed, we project that that reduction will continue going forward as we continue to work our way through these tax challenges. So there isn't an easy answer to that question, but what it means in the current budget year is that about a 2.5% tax increase would be required even if nothing else changed because of the change in the tax base. All fair statement so far, Patty?
That's correct. You're right on point.
So
All
then
accurate statements, whether they're fair or not, is a completely different discussion.
that is also
That's
an
fair.
accurate statement.
And that is fair.
So, we have also been hammered, as have many other communities, by the implications of the declining investment market on the New York State Pension Fund. All of our employees, both uniformed police employees and non-uniformed employees in DPW and Village Hall and Water Department and everywhere else, are participants in New York State administered pension plans. Those pension plans are funded by an annual contribution of all the participant municipalities, which is a percentage of their total payroll. The State Controller's Office gives us annually a report of what percentage of payroll we are required to pay in, and that is the number that has to go into the budget. So what's happened this year is that because the underlying investments in the state pension fund have sagged substantially, at one point there was about a 28% drop in the total value of the investments that fund the state pension plan. They came back to all the municipalities and increased rather dramatically the contribution that we're required to make. So again, Patty, correct me if I've got my numbers a little bit off, but I think I'm pretty accurate in saying last year's contribution for non-uniformed employees was about 7.5% of payroll. This year it's about 12% of payroll. And our contribution to the police pensions this year is about 15% of payroll, and in the coming fiscal year, the one we're fighting with right now in the budget, it will be about 20% of payroll. So those two numbers alone drive several $100,000 in additional expense for the Village of Pleasantville, and those are numbers we have no immediate control over. I will say that we've gnashed our teeth over this quite a bit, and including the question of whether we have any other options going forward than participating in these plans, whether the plans themselves are truly reasonably funded, whether Albany can be counted on to have reasonable actuarial projections to safeguard this in the future, and whether we can count on the legislature to make reasonable decisions about the management of these plans. I mean, one of the enormous frustrations we have is that, among other things, in fat times, the legislature hands off benefits like saying pension contributions disappear after X years for employees, even though in the previous era, everybody paid a modest percentage of their salary into the pension plan as an employee. So it's a source of great frustration. If I were inclined to put the entire dark picture on the table, it would only be fair to say that the State Controller's Office has circulated a white paper that suggests that depending on the speed and the impact of a proposed revival of the investment markets, the contributions to the state pension plans may have to continue to go up, even to the point of potentially 35% of payroll for non-uniformed and 50% of payroll for cops. If that were to happen, it would be just an outrageous blow to communities like this, and I think it's fair to say it would be a bankrupting blow to places like cities that have very big police forces. So all of those things are issues that we are confronted with, that we don't get a vote on, and we continue to struggle with the question of how to manage them internally. We have certainly reflected back to our employee unions what the impact is of this on their behalf, and we have also reflected back to our elected representatives in Albany our opinion about both the impact of this and what needs to happen going forward. So I can't say that we have a tremendous amount of confidence about the results of all of that, but here we sit, and as we said tonight in work session chatting with somebody else, our focus obviously is on what we actually can control now. So two things to report. One is that we've been working through the budget quite carefully. Each of us has fanned out and sometimes singly, sometimes in pairs, gone through the revenue and expense lines for every department line by line. That's a process we've gone through over the last several years, so that individual board members would gain a real under-the-hood familiarity with the departments, and those budget sessions have, for the most part, happened at the departments themselves, so we can get up from the desk and go look at what's being talked about in terms of equipment or facilities or whatever. And I think that has been a very useful process. We are also struggling with the question of what contribution we should make from our fund balance, which is in essence our savings account. The village at the moment has a fund balance of about $2.9 million. Some significant piece of that could be eaten up by these tax challenges, because when a tax challenge goes on for several years, you end up having to provide a refund to the challenging entity, and as a result of that, we are anticipating that our total costs for tax challenge refunds may amount to as much as $1 million over the next year or so. And that could either be paid directly out of fund balance or paid through some form of financing or through a combination of the two. So it's a matter of concern to us that the fund balance, which has been carefully tended to and has grown over the last several years into a position of really pretty good stability, is somewhat at risk because of tax challenges, and it is also put somewhat at risk by the potential that we might draw from it in order to stabilize taxes in a tough year like this. So as of the moment, we have in the current draft budget a draw of about $300,000 from the fund balance to offset the expenses in the current budget year. That's actually a lower number than we've had in the last few years. And at the moment, that number is in there simply because, given the uncertainty we confront both about the economy, about what Albany's implications are, and about what the tax challenge implications are, we have been extremely cautious about drawing down the fund balance too low. I add to that we're confronting some advice from our bond counselors about the level of fund balance that rating agencies are looking for municipalities of our size in order to maintain or possibly to enhance the rating we get on short and long-term financing, and that has an effect on the interest rates we pay. So all of those things are matters that present no certainty but lots of issues, and I am happy to report that the staff and the Treasurer's Department and all five of us have been very much engaged in that. And because we've been very much engaged in that, we are not going to vote tonight on the budget. The 7.38% number that has been on the budget that you see up on the web, I think is likely to get down noticeably lower than that. At the moment, I think there is some reason for optimism, and I can't promise anything at the moment, that we can get that number down into the 5-point-something range. We continue to have concerns about how close to the bone we can cut some of these budget lines, and we continue to have some concerns about whether or not it would be appropriate to draw more out of the fund balance. So that's where we are. That's why we aren't going to vote tonight, but we will vote on Thursday night. And what I hope to be able to present to you is a budget that looks, from a tax perspective, noticeably better than the one we look at right now up on the web. So any of you who are interested in the nuts and bolts of it can see the current version of the budget, the 7.38% increase version, on the website at www.pleasantville-ny.gov, and you can pull it down as a PDF. So I invite any comments. Anybody on the board have something to add to that long-winded shtick there?
I think you said everything, but
I've used up all the oxygen in the room.
I think I'd like to see it get even lower, and I think everybody should be aware of the fact that we all have our pencils sharpened and we're doing everything that we can, and I'm, as you know, very much in favor of borrowing more from the fund balance to get that rate down a little bit more. But we are looking at everything. Everything is on the table, and we will deliver a lower it's still an increase, but a lower one, because less is in our control than in the past, with everything that the mayor just said, and that's very frustrating for us because we can only do so much. But we are all very, very focused on that one objective and feel the pain as much as everybody else does. So,
I mean, the fund balance is a discussion we've been reading what our neighboring communities have been doing and paying huge amounts of the fund balance to keep their tax increase low. but that can result in the following year of being even more chaotic. So, I agree with you, Mindy, that we should look at that. I am not opposed to taking more out of the fund balance, but it's something I think we have to. I mean, we don't take this lightly, and we certainly don't take a tax increase of 7% lightly.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm self-employed in the arts. It hurts me hugely to see a tax increase like this. So, I think all of us are pained by this, and I think it's just grotesquely unfair that so much of what we're facing is handed down to us by Albany, by people who don't feel it as much as we all feel
That's
it
right.
at the local level. And I resent it. I just think everybody should be sure you vote for your Albany politicians.
Right. I will say that fund balance is a funny thing. Basically, I think you look at fund balance as just deferring a tax increase into the next year unless you think things are going to change remarkably. And I don't think they're changing remarkably next year. So, every $80,000 roughly is a 1% increase in your taxes. So, if you've got a $300,000 fund balance, you're looking at 3.5–4% of a tax increase that you'd be pushing the next year if we don't get an increase in the revenues. So, that might be okay, except that where we're going in the budget in terms of cutting are things that I think it's perfectly legitimate to do to get this down to the 5.8, 5 point something percent if we can get there. However, it means going into things like estimating how much overtime we need for snow removal and things that we could be right on and things that we could be wrong on. There are things that are beyond our control. So I think you got to be really careful, especially when we're looking at some of the tax certs that we're looking at, to look at that fund balance and say, let's just use more because we want a lower tax rate. When indeed, I think it's got to be done measured against how we're getting there. And I never like to put together a budget based on hope. I think you got a budget based on facts, and you hope for the best. That's not to say that there's not, glimmers of potential optimism. Certainly the economy is showing some rationale for making us look forward to say, maybe it won't be as bad as we think. But, I think we're also states, towns, counties, and villages are probably 18 months minimally behind what we're seeing nationally. So, and there's some might be arguing that what we're seeing nationally isn't really as great as it might be. So, I'm completely on board with what it's been said here about getting this lower, but it's got to be responsible. It can't be something that we're looking at next year going, oh great, well we've already put ourselves into a 3 or 4% hole that now we have to dig out of from there. Especially if we end up with tax certs and some of the projections that we're basing on getting lower don't work as optimistically as we hope, then it could be worse than had we not done it otherwise. So that's just my viewpoint on it.
Let me mention that at the point at which we get the current year budget settled and vote on it and move into it, obviously we'll be monitoring it closely to see how we're doing and whether revenues and expenses remain in line with our expectations or whether we can improve on them. But in addition to that, we're also engaged, as some of you may have heard, in some investigations about how the world could look different in future years. One piece of that investigation is we've opened the discussion with the union about the possibility of privatizing the sanitation department. Many communities do not have in-house garbage collection and instead contract that to a private carter. And we began that discussion and we continue that discussion with the clear sense that local control is better, but local control needs to demonstrate that it's cost efficient and cost effective so that we know what we're paying for and we know that we're getting value for the dollar. So I would say that recognizing that garbage collection is obviously an essential service and also one that has an impact on everybody. It has been a matter of considerable interest to lots of people, and we are not making any hasty decisions. I do think that the current year budget may allow us to create some efficiencies that we haven't had before, including getting a longer workday out of some of our union employees who have historically not worked a full workday. So all of that is positive, and we continue that discussion. But I also think that all five of us view that investigation as kind of a prototype for an investigation to be made in other places within the village departments. The fact that we've always done things X way doesn't mean that we can or should always do them X way going forward. We have a rough 5-year budget projection that shows some dark clouds on the horizon, and I think it's quite clear that it will be necessary for us, like lots of other levels of government, to find some ways to rearrange the chess pieces so that we can turn some of these economic problems around a little bit. So you're going to hear more about that going forward, and inevitably that comes along with some controversy associated with change. We will encourage everybody's opinion, and we'll doubtless have a lively exchange on every front. But as you know, our goal here, and I think every one of us shares it, is to maintain the special characteristics of this community, but do it in a manner that we think is going to be fiscally viable over the coming years. And what we confront in this budget year simply cannot be replicated year after year after year with the government we have. So not knowing what the future holds, we're very much focused on the question of how we can get under the hood of this and rearrange some of its basic structural elements so that we have both more control and reduced expenses going forward. So if anybody in the audience has anything they would like to say, I invite anybody to come up to the podium. Just let us know your name and address, and let us know your opinion. And as I mentioned earlier, we also mentioned anybody who wants to call in can call at 769-1677, and we would be happy to take your comments, hear your concerns, and answer you to the best extent we can.
Good evening. Peter McAndrew, 53 Pierce Drive.
Hey.
First of all, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for your introductory comments. They're very thorough, and I have a much better sense of the situation. I was wondering if you could describe what staffing areas you do have any flexibility on at this point in terms of furloughs or layoffs. Is everything controlled through contracts and nothing is up for grabs, and or not necessarily people, but services and programs and things like that? And has that scope been part of what you've been looking at over the last 10 or 15 days?
Well, yes and no. We have, I think the head count today is 72
full-time.
72 full-time employees, and then a small roster of permanent part-time employees, and then a cast of seasonal employees, particularly the people that work at the pool and the day camp and all that sort of thing, as well as some high school and college students that we hire to assist in public works in the summer. So we have...
But out of those 72, 35 are CSEA
which
employees.
is that's Civil Service Employees of America.
And about
representing-
16
right.
are PBA.
So when we have had vacancies that have appeared in any position in the last couple of years, we've left them vacant. We're in a situation right now with the police department where you get to too many vacancies, and unless you work through a negotiation with the union to change the staffing levels on a shift, you end up staffing your vacancies with overtime shifts, and it costs you more money. So based on the analysis so far, and it's impossible to predict into the coming year exactly how it will play, you end up with an officer who ends up with a medical leave unexpectedly, and it boosts your overtime. You end up with more family leave, whatever. We're in a circumstance where we're contemplating hiring a new patrolman to fill a hole. We've had a couple of different people go out on medical leaves. We had a patrolman retire, and we have a couple of gaps in our sergeant's ranks right now. So we're thinking of refilling that one spot at the moment in order to avoid boosting the overtime. We have engaged in a preliminary way with some sort of freewheeling discussions with the PBA about ways in which the world could be different. And obviously, the models that exist in some other departments are worth talking about, including civilian dispatch, including the possibility of shared dispatch with the neighboring community. And as you may know, and many people in the community have mentioned over the years, at various points there has been discussion about complete dissolution of the police department and absorbing it into the town of Mount Pleasant. So there are some issues attached to all of that, and among them are what expectations we have about response time, whether we would expect to have a precinct remaining here in the village of Pleasantville, or whether a potentially merged police force would be dispatched only from Valhalla, where their headquarters is. But in addition to that, we're in the midst of looking at the kinds of work rule changes that might allow us to adjust our thinking going forward. Police officers are very expensive employees, not only because they are substantially paid, but also because, as you heard earlier, their contributions to the pension plan are substantially higher, because, again, by state law, a police officer can retire with a pension after 20 years of service.
Their contribution.
Pardon?
Their contribution, the individual
Yeah.
officers, is our contribution.
Right, our contribution, the payroll contribution. So we'll be looking at every possible scenario to reduce our costs going forward with the police department, and again, trying to balance that against the set of demands that various interest groups in the community make upon us to maintain certain kinds of services. There isn't a single way to say how we should win on that, but the police department is obviously a critical piece to look at, it being approaching a third of our total general fund budget. Elsewhere, we don't have as much flexibility to think about layoffs as some other communities do. Our DPW crew is divided up into several different divisions, including the sanitation division, highway, parks maintenance, etc. In parks maintenance, for example, we have 3 employees, and those 3 employees, just at this time of year, can't keep up with what they have to do. In the wintertime, they get repurposed to other kinds of tasks when they don't have parks-related activities. Part of our problem also is the recognition that DPW has a whole series of highly variable workloads, not only seasonal, but when you have the 1-2 hit of storms we had over the past winter, it makes you realize that on days like that you can't get enough warm bodies, much less people with skills and knowledge about the way the village works. So we've left a couple of spots open in DPW. As I mentioned, we are looking at leaving some spots open in sanitation that have come open to see whether we can achieve our goals with a leaner workforce. And we'll continue to look at that. It is a circumstance where there are days you can point out maybe we could reduce the total head count, and then when there's a water main break or a snowstorm, you think maybe we've cut ourselves too close to the bone. So that's a challenge we continue to work with. On the recreation side of things, we have 3 full-time employees, a superintendent, and 2 people who work here in the office. The recreation department substantially offsets a lot of the costs of their programs with the revenue that they get from running them, and I think that there aren't opportunities for wholesale changes in that budget. Ditto with the senior citizen programs, where we run a Meals on Wheels program, a senior meals program, and a whole series of enrichment programs down at the Clinton Street Center. There may be opportunities for savings. I don't think there are opportunities for substantial changes in the headcount. We've had discussions about furloughs, including the possibility that there might be a day or 2 or 3 where on a rolling basis employees are furloughed and are not paid for a day of work. And that is something that we have on the radar screen as a possibility. That's obviously unpopular with employees. That isn't in and itself a reason not to do it. The question is, what does it cost us? Can we do it with the police force without incurring more overtime to fill the gap? But those are discussions that are going to be ongoing in the course of the year. Our police union contract is going to be coming up as the police union contract we're in the last year of at the moment. CSEA contract comes up for 2011.
Yes,
Um,
May 31st,
so,
2011.
We will.
No, I'm sorry, Mayor, 2012. They have,
The negotiations, they'll come up in 2011
that's right. But
for a
their
contract that begins in
expires.
2012.
Right, in
In the
2012.
course of our sanitation discussions, I can tell you that CSEA has flatly refused to consider reopening the current contract. We've asked, and we continue to ask, and I would say never, but that's where it stands right now.
The county, the CSEA in the county isn't opening their contract either, unfortunately.
But going forward, I think that the point, I hope the point is clear to everybody, that everybody on this side of the table is interested in having committed local employees who do a great job for us, and we have lots of them. But unless everybody locks arms and figures out a way to reduce the overall cost of things, everybody's at risk. So that's where we are on that front. I wish we were in a circumstance where we had places that have a much bigger workforce have more opportunities to cut the total. But we're in a circumstance right now where, for example, to get us down to, say, a 0% tax increase would probably require laying off 5 or 6 employees, and I think it is fair to say that we do not have 5 or 6 employees to lay off without some very significant impact on the services. So there we stand.
Well, I'll just pick up on the last comment, and
Okay.
thank you for the summary. And that would just be that you alluded to some black clouds in your 5-year plan.
And there are some.
And it's just very possible that we're going to have to face up to some notable decreases in services. And you guys are the ones that are going to have to bring those to the community and make those decisions, but I encourage you to look at them straight on. You mentioned earlier that you haven't gotten much positive response to the privatization idea. I would certainly entertain it.
Look, we have to entertain it.
Yeah, well, and I would endorse, maybe
Right.
stronger than entertain it.
Right.
And just 7.3% in today's climate, even though you explain the revenue sources, and I understand them, they're very challenging, but it's just not sustainable.
No doubt.
No organization, private or not private, is able to do that. So I hope you will keep the subject going on, as you also suggested. As the year goes on, you'll start looking at these things. I don't follow your activities closely, but if it sounds like budget will be top of mind, and I think it should be. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It's in the category of never wasting a crisis, I think, and that's Shane's line. I thank you, Shane. It's clear that this is both a big problem but also an opportunity. In more go-go economy and more go-go environment, it was easier to ignore what really are budget-to-budget increases that at some point are going to come back to bite us.
Actually, I think it was Rahm Emanuel's line.
Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, so Shane, you don't get credit anymore. Anybody else have any? Please.
Well, I just like to say, I think that it's interesting. There are really 2 parts to this, and there's been a lot of focus from the community generally about, as Peter had mentioned, that big number of tax increase, and it's certainly very frightening when you have kids in school and you're looking at your own job and wondering, or your own business, where cash flow can be significantly off kilter, and wondering how long things will last. And there are an awful lot of people in this community, as well as in the world at large, who are unemployed or underemployed and are feeling an awful lot of pain over the current state of the economy. And the other half of the issue, too, as Peter and you were getting into, is the creativity that you need to have going forward to take some of these built-in costs and pare them back, and whether it's re-examining the need for expending half our budget for a police department, or several $100,000 that we may be incurring perhaps unnecessarily in in-house sanitation services, or whether it's some of the other things we've been talking about, such as looking at some surplus properties, and whether the value of those properties, which are laying fallow, could be put to good use in offsetting some of the certiorari's that we have, and also bringing in a stream of income in the future, which they're certainly not doing now, which is a double whammy on the cash flow coming into the budget and again on an annual basis in taxes. So we talked about DPW and swapping in 5 trucks for 2 new trucks which are way beyond service level, being able to consolidate staffing needs with vehicles that are capable of providing more than one service. Something as simple as a combination plow sander, which the department doesn't currently have. So every snowstorm you have to have 2 people operating 2 separate vehicles, both of which I think they're close to 20 years in use, which is way beyond their life expectancy, and they're costing the village on a regular basis tremendous amount of money in repairs and parts and salaries for those repairs. So I think there are a lot of things going forward, and I think both you and both Peters said that the budget thing, or the budget period is a full calendar year, and it's a good time throughout that entire time frame to look at ways that could structurally change the way the village is set up financially, and could dramatically, I think, begin to impact the ways in which we incur debt. And certainly in the month or 6 weeks coming into a budget cycle, to try and make a decision that quickly about some of the bigger issues, particularly personnel and departmentally, I think would be foolish to try and rush it into that. So this year we may be struggling more with trying to get the tax rate into a reasonable level, but I think between now and the next budget we should be looking very carefully at how to permanently lower the liabilities that are costing us on an annual basis, and I'm sure that you're dealing with the same thing over at Hackley.
Okay.
And I think, we can just all tell you that everything's on the table for us, everything. So, when I meet people on the street, they say, we should be fearless about what it is, how we're looking at things. We are. I think all 5 of us are. Nobody's going along just to get along and to get past this period. We take this more seriously than you can imagine, and we're looking at this in brand new ways, and you'll see some changes. So.
All right, I thank you for those comments, and again, we look forward to any further comments anybody has. You can shoot them over to Village Hall if you have any comments. In the meantime, we're going to be voting on this budget at a special session Thursday of this week, April 29th at 7 p.m., and we're pulling the...
Televising it?
Are we in a position to televise that, Shane? Would you be around? He's agreed. Thank you.
Businessman of the Year.
Businessman of the Year. All right, you can be Businessman of the Year next year, too. What do you say?
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Shane. Very much appreciated. So that will be televised Thursday, the 29th at 7 p.m.
This Thursday.
This coming Thursday. We're required by law to have passed the budget before May 1. So those of you who follow along the agenda, the first 4 resolutions were for the budget. They're now going to be pushed to the 29th, and so we'll renumber the remaining resolutions starting at 81, which is the next one in the row. So, Steve, the new number 81, approval of the check register.
Resolved that pre-check register dated April 26, 2010, covering check numbers 66196, 66197 through 66302 has been reviewed and hereby approved as listed below. General fund, $175,871.49. Miscellaneous revolving fund, Patty?
Sorry?
Miscellaneous REV.
Revenue.
Revenue
Oh,
fund,
revenue.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
$603. Water fund, $103,748.58. Refuse fund, $14,776.22. Pool fund, $1,816. Trust and agency fund, $1,536.25, for a total of $298,351.53.
Where do you live, Bill? Okay, I'll put you on that second, okay?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion approved. We have a caller.
We have a caller. There's a question for you, Jonathan.
Me.
And it's
is, I guess I'll have to. Mr. Mitchell?
Yes,
Okay, could you just give your name and address again, please?
William Mitchell, 627 Washington Avenue, Pleasantville.
And what was your question, sir?
I'd like to know if you've taken the money that you took out of the parking meter last year, parking structure last year that you wanted to put for your own parking structure. You took $50,000 out of it last year and put it in a special fund. Are we using that this year, Peter, or is that going to stay there?
At the, we actually have a project we're contemplating right now that might engage some of that money, and we'll have more to say on that, I think, within the next couple of months. The money, as it stands right now, remains in a downtown economic development fund. It can be used for parking improvements, as you suggested, or for other kinds of downtown economic development. And I do anticipate that we'll be using some of it in the coming year.
It was
Have you
$150,000.
Money out of the parking meter fund this year to put into that fund.
We are not proposing, given the budget struggles that we have this year, to take any of this year's money and put it into that fund as of, for the current fiscal year.
I would suggest you take the $50,000 and put it back into the general fund.
Well, I appreciate that, and you aren't the only person that thinks that, I'm sure. I continue to believe that it's important that we make some investments in the downtown central business district, and if we don't do it, we're going to leave ourselves in the position we've been in for a good long while, with essentially a declining commercial tax base and increasing reliance on homeowners to carry the tax burden. So it's obviously a hard project to pull off, but I sincerely believe that unless we are successful in encouraging some downtown economic development, we're not going to be able to get at the root problem of high taxes. So,
What's the status on the gentleman that? What's the status on a gentleman that came about 3 months ago, 4 months ago, interested in putting a building behind Lucy's?
he has been through the approvals process, and I'm pretty sure I'm correct in saying that he's now been approved to go ahead with that project. And as I understand it, he.
No,
you're talking about the
I'm sorry.
workforce
Are you
housing.
talking about the workforce housing project?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I was talking about Lucy's itself owns a parcel of land next to their building, and they're putting a little addition on
Yeah, that's done.
for
I
a
didn't
restaurant.
realize
Yeah.
that. I'm talking about the housing project, the 16 families back there.
The housing project has gone no further other than some general discussions about the implications of it. The county, as you may know, is required under the terms of this settlement they have made with the federal government to encourage and create 750 units of affordable housing somewhere in the county. And there are a whole list of 30 some odd communities that are eligible locations for this. Pleasantville is one of them. So the county, I think, is interested in the possibility that that might be a site where that could happen, but we have made no commitments and nothing further has been done other than what you've already seen in the form of the proposal that's been made to us.
Well, as I recall, that gentleman said, with the way it's set up, and Bryant was very surprised when he said it, but we should get it, Village should receive somewhere around $75,000 a year as an income. And at the end of the 20 or 30 years, we own the building.
The proposal was that it would be a ground lease, that we would continue to own the property, and we would get an annual ground lease payment for it. So that obviously would be a good thing. There are some other issues that have to be grappled with. What was proposed there was 2 levels of parking, and then 3, I think, levels, am I right?
Yes.
Three levels of housing above it. So that the first level of parking at the bottom would in essence replicate the lot we have right now. The next level up of parking would be to accommodate the cars of the people that live there, and then 3 levels of apartments. That, to some of us, myself included, was feeling a little big for that site, but I'm completely open to the discussion of something happening there. Indeed, I think at some point going forward, something should happen there. It's a piece of property that could be doing more for us than it is right now.
Well, I noticed that was 4 or 5 months ago, and I've heard nothing about it at any board meeting. Nothing has been brought up on any board meeting that I've watched, and I watch them all.
Part of the reason for that is that The county affordable housing settlement remains a work in progress, and it is not at all clear. I can tell you that several of us have been to meetings regarding that settlement in various places, including at the county executive's office, and it is not at the moment clear what kind of funding would be available for affordable housing, exactly how it would work, what the tax implications would be for the communities that contribute the property, et cetera. So we have already let the county know that this is one of actually several affordable housing projects that are possibilities that have been discussed in the village of Pleasantville, and that we are absolutely happy to talk about it. We have had discussions with a couple of affordable housing developers, which is both a positive thing and a slightly scary thing. What's happened in a down economy for commercial construction is that there are some developers who are now seeking more activity in the affordable housing world, especially in Westchester, because they're hopeful of tapping into the federal monies that may come as attached to this thing. So we're definitely aware of it. I think the implications for us are not yet clear, and we'll have more to say as soon as we know.
Hi, thank you for your time.
Okay.
Mindy.
Mindy, number 82.
I love that, though, don't you?
What?
People calling in.
That's great.
And having.
Watches every meeting, and I appreciate it.
That's,
Right.
that's terrific.
Resolved that the Board of
Great.
Trustees has reviewed the minutes of the meeting held on April 12th, and they are hereby approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Jonathan, license agreement, now number 83.
Yes, resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Pleasantville hereby authorizes the village administrator to sign the license agreement with Christine Connolly, 260 Broadway, Pleasantville, New York, for the purpose of installing a hedgerow on a portion of the village's property located at 260 Broadway, and is designated on the tax map as section 106, spot 7, block 2, lot 12.
Is there a second?
Second?
Patty, you want to describe this?
I'd be happy to, Mayor. This is a corner property on Broadway in Nanahagan. There was substantial renovation on that property, and there was some shrubbery removed that existed previously. The homeowners had asked for permission to reinstall hedges in the right-of-way area. They've actually done it already. They didn't realize they had an encroachment situation. So this is just going to recognize the fact that if, in fact, we ever have to go to that property and remove these hedges, they had no right to be there, and they can't come back, to the village and look for remuneration for that.
And they
And
look
it's
great.
costing us nothing.
It does look great. No, it doesn't cost us
This
The
is
whole
anything.
where-
renovation looks great.
This is
It's
where
beautiful.
everybody
They did a good job.
knows
They may not
where
know
Nan-
it, but they are. and
Where
they did a nice
Nanahagan
job.
Very nice
comes
house.
into Broadway. That's
Right.
what
Right,
I'm
right
talking
on the
about.
corner.
Right.
So,
Looks really good.
Yeah, and the
Right.
hedges are not in the way, and this,
Right.
this.
No, they're not
this
at all.
requires
They're
that
less out of the way than the
they-
previous
yeah,
ones.
This
yeah.
requires that they keep within code.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks to the Connollys for that improvement and for legalizing this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Brian, number 84, Memorial Day.
resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the request from the Memorial Day Committee to hold the Memorial Day Parade on Monday, May 31st, 2010, at 10 a.m. Set parade route to begin at the Bedford Road School, proceed down Bedford Road to the Memorial Plaza, concluding with the ceremony at the World War II Monument. And further resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the police chief to post no parking signs along the parade route and in Memorial Plaza, and to tow all vehicles violating this temporary parking restriction.
Is there a second?
Second?
This is an annual event in the village and a great, and many times quite moving event, and I know lots of people are away during that 3-day weekend, but if you're going to be around, or if there's a way you can get back on Monday of Memorial Day weekend, I encourage you to do so. It's a special occasion and a good opportunity to remember the contributions of a lot of people in the village of Pleasantville over a lot of years. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Steve, IMA.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to sign the intermunicipal agreement IMA with Westchester County with respect to a mutual aid and rapid response agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Patty, you want to describe this too? This is our annual,
Mayor, this is a renewed agreement under General Municipal Law, Section 207. Municipalities are able to enter into mutual aid agreements. This basically provides that if we request services, we shall reimburse the county and any assisting municipality for all expenses incurred pursuant to the mutual aid agreement. And if in fact the cost of police services provided pursuant to this agreement shall be paid by the requesting municipality, subject to certain exceptions. Anything provided by the county would be without cost. And the police services provided by each assisting municipality shall be reimbursed according to general municipal law. So it's been in effect for many years. I don't believe that we've ever had to respond to a point where we've had concerns about financial consideration. There had been instances of emergencies throughout the county that this is seamlessly coordinated, without even any concern of the village. So we should take advantage of it. It does provide all the county resources to us in the event of an emergency here in Pleasantville.
okay, thank you. And there's no cost attached to it other than costs that might be incurred based on the services we provide.
No.
Or request. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Pleasantville hereby authorizes the mayor and village administrator to submit an application to the New York State Liquor Authority for a special events permit.
Is there a second?
Second.
Could Monday nights be a special event?
Yeah. Well,
This refers to the
every Monday night.
this refers to the Pleasantville Music Festival.
It does.
In the last couple of years, we have had a roped-off area where beer and wine was sold through the assistance of Captain Lawrence Brewery and Prospero's Winery, both Pleasantville businesses, and they have contributed their products at cost, so it has been a positive addition to the Pleasantville Music Festival, and this is simply an authorization for us to submit to the New York State Liquor Authority for a special events permit. So $37, I think, right?
$36.
Ah,
You have to sign as landlord, and I have to sign as permittee or something like that.
right. All right.
You're the landlord.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Pleasantville hereby approves the following budget amendments. The first two are basically appropriations. One's from the pool fund balance to cover equipment for $3,040. The second one is what you've heard a lot about, which is an appropriation of general fund balance to cover tax certs in the amount of $150,392. Those are divided between the $66,598.76 refund to the country club, $86,653 $83,653 and a penny to DS Pleasantville, and my favorite is the $140 miscellaneous claim. And then finally, we've got a few budget transfers, it looks like, amounting to $32,483 from several accounts to different budget codes in other accounts.
Is there a second?
Second?
So the latter number, $32,483, does not change our overall current fiscal year budget. We're just taking money out of budgets that have extra and funding budgets that are over cost, but the $150,392 is money drawn out of the piggy bank in order to pay tax refunds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Last one is formerly 92.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Pleasantville hereby authorizes village treasurer to close various aged capital accounts in accordance with the attached schedule. Transferred capital funds shall be used for the following purposes in accordance with village finance law. Surpluses to be returned to the debt service fund are $156,117.79, and a walkway to Jackson Street, 0. I'm just reading this. What does that refer to?
That's what's balanced out now.
That's what's oh, so we didn't spend it
Now
on
that
the
fund
walkway
is
on
zero,
Jackson
yeah.
Avenue, Jackson
Alley.
Alley. Okay.
So now it's
Right.
closed down.
So we're
Just
zeroing
closing.
out the Jackson Alley.
Closing out.
Is there a second?
Second.
Patty, do you want to describe
Sure, Mayor.
these specific items?
Yeah, there are several capital projects that over time the village had worked on. Once all payments under those projects have been paid out and the retainage has been returned, if these capital projects have come in under budget, the money that is available has to be returned to a fund in order to pay off the notes and the bonds that were originally taken out for these particular purposes. So some of these capital projects, like the Village Hall heating and air conditioning rehabilitation from 2008, ran a surplus, well, has unexpended balance of $39,000. That money has to go back to pay off the original note that the village took out in order to do that project. Public Works expansion was taken out, I don't know when, I wasn't here, that must have been 2002, 2001. There was a balance remaining in that project, $41,000. That needs to be returned to debt service. Again, the Jackson Alley walkway, there's no money left in that, but we're just closing that account number, so. for
And why
all
do
the-
we have that listed? Is that the only
Close
one
it.
that's?
It's just a bookkeeping.
But haven't we closed other ones as a result of this? I mean, I'm just wondering why Jackson is the only one listed.
Well, anything that's open has activity. There's no more activity here. So just from a bookkeeping and a good housekeeping perspective, there's no reason to keep an account open with zero balance. So we're just closing the number.
But I thought if there are surpluses returned to the debt service fund,
Mhm.
each one of those other funds would be closed as well. No?
They are being closed by this resolution. The money's being appropriated out of there, and these
Right.
will be closed. So yeah,
I'm just
maybe it's
wondering
just
why we don't
confusing
list
with
those as well.
as zero. Well, yeah.
Well,
I
these are
think-
the only ones we're closing right now.
Yes, I think Mary just wanted to
Yeah,
show the
but yeah,
balances.
Jackson
moving
Street,
out.
See what I'm
Brian's
saying?
point is Jackson Street
If we list one, we should
is the
list
one,
them all.
Right, I know
is
what
the
you're
only
saying,
one
the
listed,
resolution.
whereas they're
Yeah.
all being zeroed.
Right.
Right. Well, maybe that was just the intent, but it wasn't
Jackson,
clear.
the difference is Jackson Alley came in with 0, and it's just being closed. The others had money that needed to be reappropriated to the capital fund balance, which, but I agree, they should have been listing them with it.
Well, it
So
does
we'll
say,
see a future resolution zeroing out all those others?
right, well,
No, they're being zeroed out now. They're
they
being
are
closed
being
now.
zeroed out now. I mean, the resolution does call to close all these aged accounts in accordance with the attached
All right.
schedule. But I know that it
Okay.
it doesn't read as cleanly as it could.
No, that's okay.
It's
all right.
okay.
No, Just asking.
And
let's
then there's
see.
others like the swimming pool. We budgeted for a project that would have required basically blasting and repainting that pool, and we found a new way to deal with the problems we had with the pool's surface by relining it, and we saved almost $75,000. So that money's going back into the original debt service for that project as well.
And we can't, just for the
Mhm.
benefit of everybody, it has to go back into debt service.
Yes.
Because
It's
we can't take it and.
No, it
putting
would be
into the
unlawful to use it
operating
for anything
budget, right.
else. You borrowed it for a particular
Right.
purpose. The public authorized
killer.
that by, some
Well,
permissive
I mean, it would
referendum.
be nice to have that flexibility in the current fiscal year, but it's good
Yes.
news overall because
Right.
we have this money to fund the debt going forward. So
Right.
Right,
it's a good long-term
Good
benefit.
thing.
that's right,
And then the last one was painting the water tanks where there's $2,195 left. So,
right.
okay, we had a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. All right,
Mr. Mayor.
that being the last of the resolutions, if anyone else has anything to comment on, any new business, comments from the public? That being the case, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
We thank you very much, appreciate your attention. We'll be back on Thursday night at 7 PM to vote on the budget, and then the following Monday for a work session. Thanks very much.